Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 66 Brainstorming, where we knock around RPG ideas for monsters, settings, and characters, and anything we can think of in a general sort of brainstorming process. Tonight, there's a whole big crowd of us. Everyone give a camera a wave. Tonight also the main topic will be brainstorming some alien races for Josh's new setting of 66 Galaxy, which we'll be telling us all about in a moment. But first I'm going to hand over to Josh to deal with the check-ins. So Josh, take it over.
How's it going, guys? I'd also like to point out it's not just my setting, it's also my partner in crime. I should be pointing at him right now, Alex Pringle. Without him, it literally wouldn't be this far, believe me. He's the man who keeps me sane most of the time. And, well, he's a straight man to my insanity. So, right, check-ins. 30 seconds for each people for what you've been doing during the week. Start with Ben.
Hey guys, well, what I've been up to this week is, well, rejoining you guys because, as everyone who's followed us for a while knows, I've been away for quite some time. Some personal issues came up and worked with housing, and I've not been in the best of places for the last few months, but I'm back. I'm ready to get on rolling and finish 66 bots, and I actually started to work on it again last night. I finished off my equipment section, and hopefully I'll be able to get myself a plan up of what still needs to be done and get it done. And yeah, so this week has been pretty much getting myself back in the saddle, getting my enthusiasm up, which it is definitely, and well, getting myself ready to rock.
As much as I'm a newcomer, it's good to see you back.
Thanks.
Patrick?
Yeah,
No, Patrick. No, sorry. Chris.
Oops. Yeah. I've had a pretty good week. Getting on with lots of sort of the layout and design work. The 100 Monster Bestiary and the generic modern are both mostly laid out, and at various stages to almost completely laid out. I'm still tackling the covers for those because they're going to be big ones and important ones to get right. So I'm working on the covers. So yeah, lots of work. Not a huge amount of visible progress yet, but I'm hopefully we'll be looking next week. I will have all the existing books typeset and going to proof on all of them. So we're very nearly at the finish line with all of this. So yeah, good week overall.
Always good to hear. I did see your front cover for Bestiary. I quite liked it, as grim as it was.
Thank you. Yes, so take a look at my account for just an experimental cover. So I would appreciate people's thoughts on that.
How have you been, Emily?
Hi, got back from honeymoon on Wednesday, and yeah, that's been pretty much it since the last time we were here. Yeah, honeymoon and more Felton for my craft fair. That's pretty much taken up all of my time.
Nice. And to get one of your efforts, you got the little dragon, which is adorable. What about you, Jay? How you been?
This week, I've been mostly forgetting to turn my microphone on. What have I been up to this week? Yeah, I've been stuck into writing procedures, essentially, and carrying large bits of metalwork across site. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Writing procedures so the fitters can install things and getting the parts to the fitters so they can actually fit things. So yeah, that's mostly my week. Writing and industrial moving.
Always fun. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, pretty good. Had Monday off because I was away for the weekend playing Vampire, Vampire Masquerade with a group, and then got back to work and had to fly out to Germany to go meet with the customer, sell them some things, and they sent us some specifications for new parts. And then I spent the rest. Got back yesterday, and today had to drop everything and help somebody else fix some of their problems. So it's been busy. Busy. It was good to go out talking to customers. It kind of makes a break from being squirreled away in the lab the whole time.
Yeah. Nice. Patrick?
I've been on my honeymoon.
Microphone, Patrick.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I've been on my honeymoon.
There's a lot of lag, though.
So we went to Greece, to Crete, actually, in Greece. And yeah, so we've been doing a lot of looking around at things that would make Jay and Mark green with envy. Can you hear me any better like that?
Yes, actually.
Got
Now
back
you
in
vanished again.
a couple of days ago after a very pleasant flight. Probably one of the nicest flights, plane flights I've ever been on. So that was nice.
I can't say anything. I've never been on an aeroplane, me.
Yeah, well, I hate them.
Alex. Oh. Can't blame you. Alex, what have you been up to?
Mostly I've been packing the house into boxes for moving and working on the notes for 66 Galaxy.
Which we'll be uploading the updated notes to the other notes I put up the other day, which should contain a lot more information about the galaxy as a whole, including quite a few figures of how the D drives work and the compression of fictive space.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you may have to do that because I can't access whatever Google Drive we're meant to be going to at the moment.
I could do that. That's not a problem. Fantastic. As for me, I've had this whole week off because I've just turned 25, which was fun. I stuffed myself far too much with rib meat and then got forced to eat a birthday cake. The phrase rolling home was quite apt that day. A few bits here and there. Collaborating with Alex for a few more notes and ideas, and came up with a new stupid idea, something that we're going to keep very, very, very close to our chest until we even think about working on it, which has been codenamed 66 Costner, as in Kevin Costner. It's a long story, and we're not going to go into it just yet. So, that's check-ins done. Should we go on to brainstorming? Has anyone got anything to say at all? I hope someone heard that.
Why don't you give us a little details on the couple of alien races you already sort of sketched out?
Fantastic. Alex, unmute your microphone. You can help me fill in the gaps that I don't know. If you can hear me.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. So, we'll start with the Izrek.
Izrek is a little more your side of things.
That's true. So, the Izrek are a large, stocky race of aliens that hail from the storm-racked high-gravity world of Vinfal in the Marg system. They are physically very, very built, kind of like an upright elephant, but with a very bear-like face and very small tusks at the side. Almost a couple of inches long, no more than 10 inches for more advanced, older Izrek. The basis of the Izrek culture is the concept of Zoe. Is it Zoe? It is Zoe, isn't it? Because you were. So, Zoe is...
The little quote for this in the chat box.
Zoe is roughly equivalent to honour. They're a very honour-bound race, and they live by the creed, find victory in every small thing. Not the exact wording behind it, but it's roughly the analogue how they work. The Izrek are masters of electrical technology. Kind of weapons like Tesla coils and storm rods work particularly well, but only on their home world. Of course, when storms are just as common as sunny days, you'll eventually find a way to harness them, be it through energy, weaponry, and, well, culture, rituals maybe, for particularly large storms that happen annually. The Izrek's ships tend to be, what was it, very boxy and bulky,
Yeah, it's going to be big, boxy, bulky.
because they don't. What was it we came up with for the? They don't expand as much as, say, the Gali, or certainly nowhere near as much as the humans.
Yeah,
They-
mainly working on the principles that a lot of the other races, well, humans at least, found the precursor FTL drives, back-engineered them, and can replicate them to a certain extent. Same with Gali. Izrek, mainly because of the sort of stocky nature, they don't have very good fine motor skills, so they've never been very good at doing miniaturized technology. They've never been very good at intricate details. So they tend to just grab the D drives, slap them on a big, big, big ship, fill that with other ships, and then head out to the next people.
Right, we'll move on to the next race, which is Alex's specialization, which are the Gali. Alex, talk about them.
Yep. The Gali is sort of a post-singularity race, maybe because they ended up, to fight a plague that was coming off, they created themselves machine bodies and sort of uploaded their entire civilization. Originally was meant to be a full cyberization logic, everything must be machine logic. Interference within the process means that they are still very emotional, so very normal people. Gali mainly exist as a machine core, which houses their sort of intelligence and their power systems, and then are formed of a nanite cloud, which can be shifted and changed and manipulated. So they tend to be more of a technological race, more of the intellectual race, but can also plug themselves into specialized frames to be. They can be engineer frames, they can be space frames, they can be bruiser frames, so they can adapt in that manner.
That's one race we did figure out the proper reproduction protocols for, which is a very, very strange discussion on a sunny day it was. The Gali are very, very much tied in to an already existing alien race called the Negrel, which are essentially a living virus which infects the dead and basically becomes a mass of dead flesh animated, and then must find other dead flesh to replace those bits that are rotting. So they infect initial system, and they'll just keep killing and killing, getting more and more powerful bodies. The Gali encountered them, eventually start getting wiped out, and that's why they machined themselves to avoid it. They did not want their race being wiped out. Not by something especially unpleasant as in the Negrel.
Okay, I want to move on. So humanity, as often is the case in these sort of situations, is the young upstart, fast expanding. Because of the nature of the D drives, they can move pretty fast. So at the current point where it's set, we've got the local group, the local cluster is pretty much the big part of the human systems, and that's sort of 300 light year block. So that's their main core area, and then they sort of scatter themselves everywhere else as well.
Example being that typically the Izrek or the Guardian will look at a very barren planet and say, well, there's no strategic value on it. Humans will look at it and go, we're going to build a block of flats there. So, no, go on, Max.
We've got these sort of major races, they're the bigger players in the universe, and as part of that, they also come across, you've got many minor races who all mainly haven't got up to the big bits, but are all around and have all been slightly organized into an almost space UN type thing just for a political balance. I think we've got some ideas. So
that's a very basic minute or so on each of the pre-existing races. So I'll open up the floor to any ideas anybody else has. We'll start with Jay.
Okay, one idea I had just thinking about it is you were talking about the physical descriptions of the races. I mean, you've got one that, it's very bulky, very stocky, one slightly more cybernetic like that. I quite like the idea of a race that is just physically repulsive. just really, really physically unpleasant for other people to look at. So they've, in no way, shape, or form, as their evolutionary path, taken them down the idea of pleasantness. Attractiveness hasn't been a deciding factor. So it's been like just the competition for food has been more and more what they've needed. So imagining them being significantly overweight, their skin is callous, covered in sores and hard points. Essentially, is just I imagine what they've grown up in, or the rest they've grown up in. It's just been very hard work. So yeah, it's basically, essentially, the idea behind a race is a race that has no concept of beauty. A race that has no concept of art.
That is fantastic. I
just
never thought that.
Purely functional.
That's definitely going in that. That's something that had not occurred to me before, and that's fired cylinders. We could definitely come back to that one and start fleshing it out if anybody is interested in fleshing that one out. Yes? Cool. Okay, Ben, you had an idea?
Now, yeah, what I'm liking about all the ideas that we're having so far is that everything we seem to be very good so far at avoiding the whole Star Trek, they're humans but with forehead things. Everything I've heard so far is very, very inhuman. So I like to suggest a race that is not really that physical. I've got to. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I've kind of stumbled. It's a race I've had in mind so far, and they're kind of a. Sorry, I'm stumbling. If you could move on.
Okay, chat. Patrick?
There's a concept I've actually used a couple of times before, but it never quite successfully. But I think it might actually fit your setting a bit better. A race which has no spacefaring ability, but which is found on multiple planets.
How would that work? How would they spread?
Well, that's the thing. That's the mystery. You have a creature which, by all rights, shouldn't be in multiple places, but is. You could say it's convergent evolution, or that maybe something moved them around there, but there doesn't seem to be any real purpose in doing so.
Yeah, me and Alex have a race known as the predecessors, which is where we get all our technology, all the advanced technology, especially the D drives from, and some very rare relic weapons. It's entirely possible, as Alex just pointed out, that the predecessors put them there. But for what purpose, we don't know. Were they guard dogs, guarding technology? Were they failed experiments? They decided to go to different worlds and see exactly how they'd be affected by the environment. Who knows?
Yeah.
I quite like that.
Yeah. Or they're like maybe possess an innate ability that's kind of allows them to, like, I don't know, like create wormholes or something. Although that would be spacefaring ability, so I don't know.
Fair enough. Quite like this idea. Chris?
Yes, my thought was, it's going for something completely alien. What was the most alien thing I could think of? And I was thinking in lines of, a civilization which came out of a gas giant, so something like Jupiter, where it's not, there's no solid land, and obviously they're big bags of gas or, collections of gases, and they would have a very different culture and very different sort of technology. And I was thinking, well, how would you create technology? And I think big gas giant, you've got lots of chemical elements, you've got lots of different levels at different pressures, that you can actually craft stuff by taking stuff from one area, transporting it down until the pressure does something to it, and then moving it back up again. And then I thought, well, could you do spaceships? And I thought, well, maybe sort of like methane ice spaceships. So they sort of like build these methane ice spaceships low down and then bring them up to the outer levels. And space being cold, melting isn't an issue. And you could actually end up with something very, very different.
I do like that. So they could fire out their ships using the solar flares. Because they are inside the gas giants themselves, they'll be able to tell where the solar flares are going to flare up, get them ready, and fire them out into the void. Maybe drift for millennia until they land.
Yeah, I mean, if they're sort of different life forms, they might not age in the same way. And a bag of chemicals doesn't necessarily age like flesh would. So yeah, I thought you could take something very different with that.
I do like that. Emily, you had an idea?
Actually a bit different from everyone else. I was actually thinking something more cute. But hear me out. More like in a deceptive way, like say, you trust a baby seal because they have big eyes because they're cute. But something that actually gets into space by kind of allying itself with other species because they look pretty harmless, but they're actually very cunning and kind of destroy other governments from inside out because everyone trusts them because they look so harmless. They're small, they're quite weak looking, but they're actually incredibly cunning espionage agents.
That's horrifying. That's a great idea for a pre-gen campaign, discovering why all these governments on these planets are suddenly falling down. And it's the point at which you discover that these small, innocent little, say, furball creatures are actually horrifically intelligent on a plan to overthrow everything. Yeah, shapeshifters maybe, as Jay's quite rightly pointed out. It's terrifying. Ooh. Got the nicest.
Yeah, we had those in the game.
Nice. Any other ideas, guys?
I had a general question for something. How straight do you want to play this particular setting?
It's. I'm going to have to get Alex to back me up on this one. How did we describe it, Alex?
It's mostly a straight space opera at the moment that we were thinking of, but with things like the Izrek are what you would take as your normal, we are obsessed with honor, military culture, rarg, but with the slight twist of the fact that they apply that thinking to everything. So, yes, there is honor in combat, there is honor in fighting, but the honor comes from the struggle. So there's also honor in debating in the boardroom, there's honor in defeating the fields and harvesting the crops. So it's kind of, we've got this, try and take space opera tropes and give them a little bit of a twist to make them slightly different.
I think the closest... sorry.
I was thinking more in terms of the tone of the game, but that's probably a slightly longer question than...
I think the way we decided it was very much a cross between, say, Mass Effect and Star Wars. So while it's bright and colourful, where there are shadows, those shadows are quite dark.
Okay, so it's all comparatively simple. Because I was considering, like, for example, trying to pick up an idea and expanding on that. For example, those Nices we have, the shapeshifter ones. That's something which lends itself very well to a kind of gonzo, very light-hearted style of game. If you want to do something which has got kind of dark ages and things in it, then it's probably slightly more difficult to implement.
That's true. I'll certainly consider that. What was I say, Chris?
Yeah, Ben's got an idea.
Fantastic. Ben?
Well, it's the same idea, but I might be able to actually say it this time. My idea is for a race that has come from a world with very, very high gravity, and as such, rather than your race, which have grown to be very buff and very adapted to it, they become dependent on it in their natural state on their own planet. They're basically gelatinous blobs which have to be kept together by that high gravity. if you take them to a low gravity environment, then they'll simply slosh apart and lose their coherency. So they've got to get suits, special suits that produce this high gravity to deal with other species, and it's left them with a bit of a complex in being weaker physically. So they're determined to be better culturally, culturally, scientifically, however successful they are. Probably not very at all, but kind of a race that's got a bit of a superiority complex born out of the fact that a superiority complex born out of an inferiority complex, and due to the fact that the worlds, their natural one and the ones they have it, are so high gravity, the pressures there can create unique elements and chemical processes that they have a stranglehold on. Other species might need them, and thus they use that as leverage against all the others.
Yeah, see, I just have a vague vision of what they could look like. Have you got a physical idea for what the suits could look like before I say my idea?
Not much. I think it'd be kind of the thing where they could build a suit for, like, I'm going to be dealing with humans today, so I shall get on my human suit and squeeze myself into human form to talk to them. Or that's because is whichever shape they're squeezed into, it doesn't matter so long as they're coherent and pushed together as it is. Yeah, that's just my idea off the top of my head.
So the way I see possibly their home scientist ones, so maybe in a glass sphere or rough equivalent, analog with like mechanical parts around it, which have the manipulator arms, kind of like half mechanical squid, half glass domed slime.
Yeah, that could work.
So I imagine the slime would flow depending on which way the alien's flowing. So they have distinct markings where they say the eyes would be, even if we don't see them as eyes. Yeah. So we've had all these great ideas. I'm going to pick two for now. We're certainly going to keep all of them on board and start expanding them, and I imagine we'll bring more to further brainstorming sessions later on. But yeah, I'm going to pick two. So I'm going to pick the physically repulsive, because I really like that idea, and the gas giant creatures. So I think we should start with the physically repulsive, first on the list, and I'm going to ask.
Sorry to jump in, Josh. We are just keeping an eye on the time here. I think we've had so many great ideas for actually different races. I think what would be a good idea is if next week you sort of come back and give us a recap on how you've developed those ideas and your further thoughts on those ideas. Sorry about jumping in like that, but I think it's probably a good time to move on to Jay to do a recap of last week's, whereas Jay's done some monsters.
Fantastic. So I've got no problem with that whatsoever.
Grant. Okay, so last week we were looking at that incredible picture of the trekking monster walking through the landscape, which we had a lot of ideas on, and we were bouncing around ideas about was it a robot, was it a human, what was its kind of purpose and goal, and I just kind of sat down afterwards and just let my brain free roll a little bit on it. I ended up basically going with what, I'll just read it straight off the website right now. Chris, could you post a link to the Cyberknight in the chat for me, please? So yeah, reading straight off it. Honor Guard Unit 14 was built to stand guard at the entrance to the Emperor's throne room. It watched dozens of Emperors come and go until one day the Citadel was attacked. As the city began to fall, the midwife pressed into its hands a small child, the 8-year-old first daughter, and commanded it to flee the city and always keep the child safe. Armed only with its ceremonial melee weapon, HGU-14 finds itself alone in a hostile world with the baby it only recently learnt to look after. Chucking the child behind its shield projector, it now sets off, looking for allies. So the thought I basically had from looking at this image was I couldn't get the concept out of my head. This isn't an NPC, this is the monster. This is almost a player character. This is very much on the lines of someone that the players are going to encounter. So I could very easily imagine a situation where this is a character the players are allied with or are tasked with chasing down. Very much so, plot characters. Yeah, Chris?
Yes, I was just about to comment on what other people have commented in the chat. Is that this I would write a whole adventure about, or possibly several connected adventures where the players, find out about it, follow it, encounter it, and possibly re-encounter it several times. So it's something you can build an adventure around, or even an entire world around this that idea. So it's a great idea.
Yeah, very much like that. And another aspect of it I quite like was the fact that you can add a significant layer of moral ambiguity to this, because in the write-up, I've not stated whether this was an empire for good or an empire for evil. You can get into quite deep discussions about the innocence of the child that it's protecting. Do you want to destroy this child or kill this child because he represents a symbol that could reforge an evil empire? Or do you have to say, well, let's take it away and hide it somewhere? So, well, what do you do with the robot? Normally, it's trying to protect the child. So, I quite like the ambiguity on that. You could really get stuck in it. It's a great way to throw it at a party and watch the party fall apart. Josh, back to you. Microphone.
Stupid question. Are we talking about the General Rob banner and Cyber Knight, or are we going to plus and deltas there? Or what about when I said up?
Yes, and then moving on to the next topic.
When I said up, I pretty much had the same idea that Chris had. This is something you could write an adventure around. Even if it's a small plot point, it could have. You just set the tone for the rest of the adventure, split the path, almost, depending on the actions of the play characters. Cool. Moving on. Next week, maybe? I'm a little lost, unfortunately.
No, that's fine, Josh. Yes, we need to decide what to brainstorm next week. Anyone can dive in here. So what we're looking for is a topic which we can put out there with people on the social media during the week, get some ideas from there, and also obviously we'll talk about it next week. So whoever's will sort of be leading the meeting next week, primarily running the brainstorming and seeking to get something useful out of it. The idea of these is always at the end of it, the person who's come up, who needs the ideas, actually has something useful they can go away and develop. So let's go. Several people got their hands up. So Jay, you were first.
Yeah, I was gonna simply leave with the fact that I reckon that we could easily pick one of the aliens we've gone with tonight, that we've quickly brainstormed, and flesh them out. So we could do a second week of this. Could quite easily happen.
Yes, there's lots of great ideas there to build up. Ben?
Yeah, what I'd be interested in is if we can brainstorm some of the key locations in 66 galaxies, like homeworlds, any major places of galactic importance, and just, where people would possibly be adventuring, any dangerous areas of space, all that kind of thing. So locations and settings, I think, locations might be worth turning an eye towards.
Yes, that'll be a good one, because the interaction between the alien races and the locations will give us a lot of sense to the galaxy. Josh?
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the ideas we've had. I'm going to have a good crack at it myself. I'll bring to the table what I've come up with, and everyone else can feel free to add ideas, take away ideas, critique it, and that's what I'll bring to the table, as well as already existing locations that we've come up with, and small seed ideas for what could exist.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. So I'm just trying to think. One of the thoughts is about how we get interaction from the social media. Because one of the things we didn't get this week, we had done on previous weeks, is any ideas from the social media. And I think that's because of the scope and complexity. Because when you say, you know, galaxy, name some alien races or come up with some alien races, it's a huge, big blank piece of paper. Whereas previous weeks we've had specific images, and so people are a lot more focused. So I'm trying to think about, I think for focus, I think probably what a good topic for social media would be is possibly locations, because, you know, weird, wonderful planets, strange sites you can find on particular planets, you know, because they're things which people can have one idea of, write down in a sentence or two, and get involved on the social media. So how does that sound for you, Josh?
Yeah, I've got no problem with that. I'll come up with a few sentences and place them on certainly on the 66 Fireball, and I'll put them through my Google Plus, and then the 66 Razor Crow Google Plus, which is the home one for Galaxy itself, and we'll bring those ideas to the table.
Yep, that's great. Alex, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just thinking we're going about locations, would it be worth maybe setting the challenge of, considering that the 7 Wonders of the Ancient World were essentially a travel guidebook to the best places to go, if we set the social media one to be the 7 Wonders of the 66 Galaxy?
That is absolutely brilliant. That nicely encapsulates and the sort of ideas we want. That is an excellent way of framing it. 7 Wonders of the Galaxy. Jay?
You were mentioning about images. Another aspect you could go on would be to find an image or a bit of artwork of a location that someone's done, and then use that as the prompt. So essential lines of, here's a picture, tell me about this alien location in the guise of 66 Galaxy.
Yes. I certainly know somebody who I can poke to get some locations that could be used for that. I'm sure Alex has got a few images we can work some stuff from. Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
I think purely from a social media thing, I think if you just frame it as the 7 Wonders of the Galaxy, and we'll just have a generic image, or possibly have you create one of the 7 wonders and say, this is an example image, this is what we've written up, can you give me the other 6? That yes. Will probably be the best of all possible worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got a plan for next week. That's brilliant, Josh. You'll be in the chair, unless Alex wants to be in the chair, since you're both writing it. Let's move on. Josh, do you want to run us through the pluses and deltas? Ben, I'm not sure you've done this before, so I was just wondering whether it might be best if you don't start with Ben.
No worries. I'll go left to right, starting with you, Chris. We'll do the pluses and deltas at the same time.
Okay. My plus. Well, I'm going to take the really easy, obvious one and say lots of people. Yay!
It's quite nice to see.
Yeah, I think this beats us probably the most number of people we've had in a meeting, not counting Patrick twice, you know. Yeah, that's a definite up. Delta's things I'd like to change. I think Josh, you need the practice. I've thrown you in the deep end saying, host this meeting. It's turned out to be a whole load of people, lot going off. You've done it brilliantly. What we need to do is get you slightly more fluid, and we all get better with the mic control, so we have less gaps between sort of doing things. So that's, I think, for all of us, we need to be sort of more on the ball and minimise those gaps.
Mm-hmm. Emily.
Pluses, like Chris, yeah, nice to have a lot more people here, and yeah, nice to see Ben again. Good to see Alex as well. And yeah, I really liked working on the races, because race creation is one of my favourite things, so that was quite enjoyable. Delta's just the usual, I mean, Pat's suffering from computer issues. use. And again, yeah, just getting used to the microphones again.
Jay?
Pluses. Yeah, good ideas. Lots of bouncing around. Good to see we've got, yeah, lots of good ideas. Ideas are good. Yay for ideas. Ideas are good and happy. Yeah, deltas. Yeah, a little bit low on the flow, and I think we just say the selfish thing. Partly a side effect of there being so many of us here, you do end up getting less screen time.
Which makes sense.
But that's just because I like the sound of my own voice, and in the previous meetings I'd be doing a lot of the talking, so I feel slightly left out, despite the fact that I'm doing it now and monopolising screen time. It's someone else.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah. Sorry. So pluses again. Numbers of people. Good. Good set of ideas. It's nice to see some interesting stuff coming up, like the gas giant creatures. I'm really curious to see what we come up with for them if we expand on those next week. Deltas. Meeting's a bit short. I think for this number of people and this number of ideas, 1 hour is less than that. Really, half an hour is too short to even get into something in any kind of level of detail. Particularly for this number of people, kind of get the time to sort of give an idea once, and then we kind of come around to the end of it. So we'll have to ponder the solution to that if there is one. Because I certainly don't want to say there should be fewer people. I certainly don't want to say we should have fewer ideas. So we'll see. But that's a delta for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Mark, and yeah, we can solve that easily by being better about starting on time and all of us being a little bit more organised. So yeah, definitely we need to get the most out of the time we have.
Patrick?
Pluses. There wasn't so much J in this meeting. No, I'm only kidding. Yeah, I think we got a lot of ideas on the table very quickly. I saw that. Deltas, I don't know if anyone noticed, but once again my tablet cut out for a percentage of the meeting, so now I actually don't know what we're doing next week. That would be my main delta.
Yeah.
It's alright, I'll
Alex?
watch the video later.
Pluses, well, thank you for having me. I managed to make this meeting and on with that. And thank you for sort of a plus being we actually get this going, the sort of 66 Galaxy up and people interesting in it. Delta, I can't access things, so I don't find anything technical difficulties on my side. And again, just because it's your first session, Josh, I think it could have been the structure needs work. So just a cheat sheet on the side of the screen.
I'll go to my pluses and deltas now, and then I'll go to Ben. Plus, again, as I'm going to say what most people are saying, it's been nice to see this many people. It's been great just bouncing around ideas. It's including quite a few ideas I had never conceived. This is exactly what I think these sessions are for. These to be able to get fresh perspectives on ideas that you would never have thought of. And ideas you never thought of. Delta, I'm partially agreeing with what Mark said. These meetings are a bit too short. If we're going to, especially in the future, if we're going to have more people, it's possibly going to have to go up to maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, if possible. Though I don't know if that's possible. Certainly, I imagine something worth discussing in a future meeting. Maybe not necessarily a think tank, but certainly later on. And I'll now move on to Ben.
Well, my plus is that I do really, really love this new. Well, I don't know how new it is, but the whole creative think tank approach to the meetings is a lot more accessible, a lot more fun, and like I said, I just love the idea of bouncing this man sort of ideas around. I wish all of this had been up when I started. And deltas. I think we're still getting a bit used to the whole Microsoft mic on when we're ready. So some of us are still a little slow on that. Some of us, he says. But yeah, but that'll be solved once we've got some time to get used to it.
Fantastic. Over to you, Chris.
Okay, thank you very much, Josh. You've done a fantastic job. You know, your first meeting was 2 weeks ago. You've never met most of us, and to dive in and to run the meeting of so many people, you've done a fantastic job. Really looks good for your commitment for the long term of actually developing a product, because I think one of the things Ben and Jay, Mark and Pat can tell you is that it's a long road creating a setting and publishing it. So I'm really positive. I'm really looking forward to your and Alex's work and your commitment to 66. So that is brilliant. Really good meeting. So we'll finish there. We will be back next week for another brainstorming, and we'll be again talking about aliens in more detail, possibly with more time as well. So that's great. So nothing else to say other than goodbye, everyone, and have a good weekend. Bye-bye.